Welcome back, my fellow aggressive learners. In this section, we shall be talking about the cal function, and then we shall talk about height. And of course, I want to remind you that height by default is always auto. And then we have mean. We're going to talk about mean height, all right? And then we're going to talk about max height, all right? And then finally, we talk about overflow, all right? So sit back, relax, and then enjoy yourself in this class. Remember, this was our last video section. All right, this was the example we had, so we're just going to go ahead and make use of it. All right, so we don't go from scratch. Now let me delete all the previous data. Remember, this were all we described. The background was just to help us see what we're doing. All right, so I'm going to clear all this. Right, good. Now remember, what this was doing was to clear the default browser style. That is what we introduced this to do, and we wanted it to universally do that. That was what introduced the asterisk. All right, so remember we had this there. All right, so I just added this content. So if you remove this content, of course you are going to see nothing. Yes, thank you. So just introduce this. All right, that is what I did. So now for us to go ahead in what we're doing, right? So let me refresh. So we have this. Now for us to go ahead with what we're doing in this section, let's try to play around and find out the function. Now, how does it work? Like, let's give this in a height of let's say 10 rems. Remember, we talked about rems. So rems inherits is dependent on the browser default font size is dependent. So you can see we've had already 10 rems. All right, so that is it. Of course, if you want to give this a color, I think that's totally your business. All right, go ahead and do it, but that's not the purpose I'm here in this section. Now that we've given this thing a height, now let's look out for the about section. The about section, I want to give it, I want it to fit in the remaining part of the browser. All right, so that we will have up to, I want it to fit in the remaining part of the browser. So we are going to introduce what we call what, let's introduce height. If you call it, if you say 100 view heights. All right, let's see what happens. So remember, it is green. So remember, you can see our 100 view height is actually introducing, is not matching the size of it. It's actually introducing a scrollable option. All right, so how do we make it so that it doesn't introduce this scroll? That means it's more than 100. The entire screen is more than 100 what, 100 pixels. So 100 view height. Now what do we do so that we ensure this screen doesn't match and it fits in the browser completely? So we have to do something. So that means we can actually do try 90 view height. If we try 90 view height, it is still there. We can try 80, and then it is still there. So let's try 70, and then that we've got some space here. So you see how we are trying and doing. Is that how we're going to be doing this? That is unnecessarily stressful. We still have some height. So what do? There is something better we can do. We can use the cal function, the calculate function. The calculate function will help us to perform that operation. It will automatically figure out this height and then figure out what is needed and impute it for us immediately. So we are going to say out of 100 view height, give a space, ensure you give that space, otherwise you get an error, and then put a minus sign, subtract the original height, which is this height, all right, from whatever that from 100, subtract it from 100, and then give us the remaining value. Use it to fit in the height. So, and what we have, this original height is how many rems? 10 rems. So go ahead and put what? 10 rems, and that is it. Now, having done this, if you refresh your page, you are not going to find this space anymore. You can see it has fitted in. If you expand this browser, you can see there is no scrollable, there is no space. It fits in appropriately. So the calc function was able to figure out what exactly the height we needed to fit it in. All right, so as you keep going, you can figure out where and when you want to make use of the height, the calc function. All right, now let's take a look at, remember I told you that by default your height is auto. All right, For instance, if I say author, if you don't define any height here, it will automatically take the height of the content. Refresh. Watch this. You see, it is author, height is author by default. All right. So I think that settles it. So I'm going to refresh my page to go back to what we have. Now let's look at mean. How do we do mean? What we mean by mean is that you can give a minimum height that you want of what you want your element or your contents to show. All right, so you can actually give a minimum height. That means you can even use cal and then say, oh, okay, I want to ensure that at 100 view height, all right, minus 10 rem, minus 10 rem, all right, it must not be 10 rem, it could be 10 pixel, it could be 50 pixel, it could be 10 em, whatever it is you have there, it could be that. But one thing you must make sure that this spaces what does exist and your words are correct. If not, it is never going to work. So mean height means that at this height nothing should, all right, this is the minimum height that this change should be, otherwise it should keep growing. All right, so let's introduce some writing into this about content. Imagine. Let's introduce some content. Let me call it lorem 100. All right, good. Lorem 100. Do we have that? Now you can see we still have some heights. All right, because we've given our minimum height. As long as your content we're consigned, this content does not meet our minimum height. All right, now you can even reduce our minimum height if we want, but that's not what we're after for this tutorial. We just want to make sure that you understand that you can actually give a minimum height, but as long as our minimum height is not exceeded, that means any other thing, it can actually, our content will keep what? We keep growing. Even if we have something that, as long as we have something that's more than our minimum height, the content will keep growing. Imagine that I increase this to what? To 300. I already have 100. Let me introduce another 100, making it 400. Let me make another 300. All right, so I have 400 here. You can see what is happening here already. You can see it's able to contain, the height is still growing because we already have a minimum height. All right, we have a minimum height. As long as that minimum height exists, all right, if we didn't define minimum height, just imagine, remove this height and see, remove this height and see, remove this height and see. We don't have height. All right, remove this height and see, it took the height of the page. Okay, I think that's it, but I know we can actually play around and find out the minimum and get a minimum height with some CSS. But if I try to make that, if I try to show that now, maybe we might extend this video to the timing I don't want. But however, all I want you to understand is that you can set a minimum height where you want to ensure that the height of your screen does not go beyond that value. All right, so the same way you can set a maximum height, you can say, okay, I want, so like we're saying, we can do maximum height. All right, check out this, you can do max height. What it means that at that height nothing should happen. Let's define it to be what? 75 VH. All right, for instance. Now you can see this, right? That means this is our maximum height. Any other thing, it cannot contain it. All right, so except you go ahead and do some extra magic. In fact, you can go ahead and do what we call overflow. All right, so overflow, you do overflow should be hidden. You can see overflow should be hidden. Now it is hidden, but you are not seeing the end of your page. Let's put something there so that we can always see the end or know where our page ends. Let's write we are learning CSS, right? So the question is, now that you've saved it, are you seeing it here? No, you're not seeing it. So let's do what we call overflow scroll. Now watch your overflow. We are learning CSS. You can see you are now what? You are now seeing your the last word. All right, so you can see how we've been able to talk about max, height, mark. Mind you, it could be pixel, it could be anything. All right, but remember we talked about the view height and view width and all that yesterday. All right, good. Sorry, on our last video. All right, good. So you can also do overflow. Let's say overflow. You can do auto. All right, so it will automatically introduce scrollable. Look at it. If you refresh, it automatically introduce scrollable. So gentlemen, that is it for this class, and I hope you got how we can apply the calc function and how we can what min height is doing, what max height is doing, and then of course the overflow. You can always play around with these things, try other values, and then see what they look like in your browser. That is the best way to get used to it. All right, I might not cover everything in this course, but it will be very important for you to also go ahead and practicalize certain things on your own. Now let me take time and show you browser settings. All right, let me show you browser settings before we get off from this place, so I don't have to make another default browser style. All right, okay, so to do that, I am going to delete everything here, and I'm also going to delete everything here. All right, I'm going to delete everything here, and then let me do H1 default browser style. All right, good. So let's go ahead to the browser and see what's going on. So let me click on this. Now I want to introduce you to what we call the browser developers 2. So you click on inspect, or you go to this place, click on this, and then click on more tools, look at developer tools, click on it. All right, once you do that, this will come up, and once this comes up, let me set this. So good, you can see your your default browser. Now you see that there are two spans here. Look at your HTML code, then look at your CSS that accompany this code. Now for everything you click here, you will see this thing pointing to the CSS. So I click on the HTML, you can see the default HTML CSS. All right, you can see it, HTML attribute. Now you will always see this thing called user agent style sheet, meaning that this belongs to the browser. This is not your self-defined CSS. All right, now if you come inside the body, if you click on the body, you will see the body also have a default CSS, a default browser style, which is also a user agent, meaning that it's coming from the browser. You didn't do it yourself. Remember, our CSS is empty. We don't have anything in our CSS. I refresh that again. We don't have anything in our CSS. This is our code. So why then are we getting all this? Why? Because our CSS, our browser normally have elements by default. All right, good. So, and that is what we are out to explain. Now if you click, remember we did H1, look at it, we clicked on it and it highlighted that stuff, and then look at it, it has some default browser style. Default, that means showing user agent, meaning that it came by default. This is the way the browser understood what H1 is. All right, this is what it does to H1. Now let's try and define some stuff there. Let's define, let's say H1. Let's give it a new color of red, and see what happened. All right, you can see this is my defined, this one is user agent, and this is my defined style. Now let's give it a font size of of 10 pixel. Now watch, the original font style that came with the user agent is already cancelled. Now it is making use of my font size, the one we did define, and you can see it has also reflected in the browser. Anyway, I know this can be very bulky when you're looking at it. It looks very difficult, but I implore you, by whatsoever thing you do, that if you really want to make progress, it is advisable you continue to make improvement, continue to touch these things so that you begin to master them and to make use of them. Because if you don't touch them, you will not know what is happening. You have to try, open it, force yourself to do something. And on that note, I want to say thank you for being part of this episode, and then congratulations. See you in the next course.